Good afternoon, children. Welcome to your iLearn English Literature class. Today we'll be doing a poem from your textbook, which is The Slave's Dream, which is chapter number 16 on page number 144 of your textbook. The Slave's Dream. So the poem, I'm going to give you a brief idea about the poem, is about a black African slave. And a slave is what? A slave is a person who has to work for his master and has no freedom of his own. He has no choice. He has to only follow his master's instruction. So slavery was a system prevalent in Africa. Slavery was a you can say a very bad kind of system which was prevalent in those days in Africa, under which the blacks were made to work for the whites, and they used to be doing all sorts of work, and they had no choice. Whatever food they were given, they had to eat. Whatever clothes they were given, they had to wear. They had no freedom at all. There was nothing called freedom. They were treated just like animals. Okay. So this poem also depicts the tragic life of one such slave in Africa. Okay, so this slave is so tired and exhausted with the amount of work he has to do, and more so the kind of life he has to lead without any freedom. He is exhausted, he is completely tired of the kind of life he has to lead because he is forced to do work. He has no freedom of his own, and he craves, he longs for liberty, he longs for freedom. And while longing for freedom, actually this person actually one day ends, like his life ends. He is not able to come out of the slavery. There is no way in which he can get out of the system. So what he does is he's so tired and exhausted with his kind of life that he quietly lies down on the sand, lay down on the sand which he was working, on the ground in which he was working, and there he has a dream. And in his dream, he sees a lot of sights about his past. He dreams about his past life, the life when he was not a slave. Okay, so he dreams about that life, and while dreaming about his past life, he passes on to the other world. That means his life comes to an end like that. Okay, while dreaming about his past life, and that is the only way in which he can get rid of the shackles of slavery. Okay, so death actually seemed to release him from the shackles of slavery. So normally death is seen as a very dark kind of thing, but for the slave, death came as a rescue. It rescued him from the slavery. The life which he was leading was worse than death. Okay, so that is what is the symbolism of the poem, that a slave's life is so bad, it's so tragic, it's so heart-wrenching that death seems to be a better escape for him. To escape this system of life, he chooses death over slavery. Okay, so let us read the introductory part of the poem given in your textbook. The poem depicts the tragic life of a South African slave who was once a king of his tribe. So once upon a time, this slave was also a king of one of the tribes in Africa. In this poem, the slave is forced to labor hard. Labor hard means work hard. He is forced to work hard without being provided sufficient food. See, he was not given sufficient food also. He was made to starve. So this kind of life he was leading. He was a slave. He did not get sufficient food, clothes, or shelter to stay. He had no place to stay. He had no proper clothes. He did not have sufficient enough food. His body is in chains, but his spirit refused to accept slavery. So this is a very important line. Although in those days, shackles, the word shackles which I was using, in those days, a chain was used. Not only were the slaves made to work and not given food and shelter and clothes, but they were chained. They used heavy metal chains to tie the hands and the ankles of the wrists and the ankles of the slaves so that they do not escape. They don't have any way of escape from this life. Look at the picture given. This is how they were slaved. These are the chains the poet is talking about. His body is in chains. Although his body has been chained, but his spirit, his soul refuses to accept that he is a slave. He does not want to accept that he is a slave. He is yearning for freedom. He is craving for his freedom. And the freedom that he gets in the end is through death only. There was no other way to liberate himself. See, death comes to liberate him. I told you, liberate means to set him free. Underline liberate and write down to set him free. So ultimately, he was not able to escape slavery. There was no way in which he could get rid of these chains and walk off from this life. So death finally comes here and liberates, sets him free. His soul, actually, his body is no more, is not capable of holding now, but the soul is set free from the shackles of his body and servitude. Servitude means slavery here. Servitude refers to slavery and shackles refers to the chains used to fasten a prisoner's wrist or ankles together. You can write down shackles, chains used to fasten, fasten, chains used to fasten a prisoner's or a slave's wrist and ankles together. Okay. The poem is a scathing attack on the system of slavery. Scathing means a severe attack. So the poet has written this poem with a view to making his readers aware about what the system of slavery was and how bad it was for the person who was suffering from it, going through this. Okay, so the poem is a very severe attack on the system of slavery which existed in those days in Africa. Okay, so this poem has been written by H.W. Longfellow, and Longfellow is a renowned American poet. But he writes, he was extremely popular during his lifetime, and he has written a lot of poems about social the aspects of society. Okay, societal aspects on which he did not like the system of slavery, and therefore this poem was written by him as an attack on this system. The whites used to make the black Africans their slaves, and for a long time, you know that this distinction because of color between the black Americans and the white Americans existed also. Okay, so Africa was a country which was colonized by the whites, and therefore they thought that they are an inferior race to us, and therefore they can only work for us as our slaves. So this was the system which existed in Africa. So let us start from the first stanza. Beside the ungathered rice he lay, his sickle in his hand. His breast was bare, his matted hair was buried in the sand. Again, in the mist and shadow of sleep, he saw his native land. So the first stanza, as you can see, is a description of the physical state of the slave. Okay, physical state. That means how is he looking like physically, what he is looking like. So you can write down somewhere that it is a description of his physical state. Now, in the first stanza itself, the poet describes the condition of the slave to the reader. How? That he was lying beside ungathered rice. Ungathered rice means uncollected rice. This tells us that probably he was working in a rice field, and the sickle in his hand. Sickle is again an instrument used to harvest crops or cut down tall grass. But since it is written ungathered rice, that means the rice was not had not been collected properly in one place, and the slave was lying there with a sickle in his hand, which is used to harvest the rice crop. His breast was bare, that means he had no proper clothes on his body. There were no clothes on his body. His breast means his chest, his upper part of the body was completely bare. His matted hair means tangled hair, which had not been combed for a long time. Uncombed hair, where will he get a comb, because he wouldn't have time also to comb his hair. So his matted hair was buried in the sand. It seems that buried in the sand symbolizes, that means the slave was so tired, so exhausted while he was working in the rice field, that he was lying down on the sand, and his head seemed to be absolutely buried in that sand, leaving an imprint of his head there in the sand. And while he was lying there, half conscious, not like semi-conscious, he was neither awake nor he was sleeping. He was dreaming about his native land. Native land means his own land, the place where he belonged to. So he was dreaming about his place in that tired, exhausted, semi-conscious state. The slave was dreaming about his native land, the land where he belonged to before he became a slave here. So there are few points here. We come to know about the miserable physical condition of the slave. Through this stanza, we come to know about the miserable physical condition of the slave. He was lying beside the ungathered rice, means shows that his work had not been completed. The work he was engaged in was incomplete. That means he must have harvested some of the crop, and he must be collecting the rice together, but he was not able to complete the job, and therefore he was so tired that he had preferred to lie down and rest for a while. His sickle in his hand also shows us that he might have fell unconscious, either because of the heat or the exhaustion, and therefore he did not even put the sickle down. He was so exhausted with the work that he had completely lost his balance and must have fallen on the ground with the exhaustion. And again, we come to know that he had no clothes on his body. On the upper part of his body, his hair was absolutely matted, tangled hair. So this stanza explains to us the physical state of the slave. Okay. Next stanza. Why through the landscape of his dreams the lordly Niger flowed. Beneath the palm trees on the plain, once more a king he strode, and heard the tinkling caravans descend the mountain road. Now we come to his dream. The poet is describing the dream which the slave is having. The slave is dreaming about his native land. We come to know about that from the first stanza, that as he was lying beside the ungathered rice, he started dreaming about his past life, about the land where he belonged to. So wide through the landscape means scenery. The scenery which the vision which he was having in his dream took him back to the scenery where he was before this, his native land, the place where he belonged to. That scenery he could see in his dream. Those scenes were going past him in his dream. He was dreaming about his native land where the lordly Niger flowed. Lordly means majestic. Okay. Royal Niger River. We know that the Niger River in Africa is a very huge river. So the river Niger was flowing majestically. So from this we come to know that the slave belonged to Africa. West Africa is where the river Niger flows. Beneath the palm trees. So in his native land, there were palm trees on the plain. Once more a king he strode. This is a very important line, because this line tells us that this slave, this person who is now a slave, was once a king of one of his tribes, one of the tribes. Okay. So once he is now visualizing himself as the king he was before he became a slave. He was a king. He was the leader of a tribe, and therefore he is now looking at his past life, how what he had all the liberty, he had all the power in the world. Being a king of a tribe was also a big thing for him. So he was the master of a few people before he became a slave like this. So once more he saw himself as a king in his dream. And where was he walking? He was walking beside the river Niger, beneath, that means under the palm trees on the plain. He saw himself walking. Strode means walk. Strode is the past tense of stride, and stride means to walk. Okay. So he was walking beneath the palm trees in his native land, and in his native land, the river Niger was flowing majestically. And he even heard, and he even thought in his dreams he could hear the sound of the caravans as they were coming down the mountain road. Descending means coming down. Descend means to come down, and tinkling is the sound, is a kind of sound made by the caravans. What is a caravan? Caravan is a group of people and animals moving together from one place to another. They always move together. They are like gypsies. They have these huge either animal carts or other kinds of transport vehicles with them, in which they move from one part to another. They keep on moving. Caravan is a group of people or and animals who move from one place to another. They're always on the move. They don't spend a lot of time in one place. So as he was walking under the palm trees, he saw these tinkling caravans making a tinkling sound as they were coming down the mountain roads. So in this stanza, the poet has described the native land of the slave. Okay, so this stanza describes the native land of the slave. And this paragraph, this stanza also tells us that he can see himself as a king again. Okay, why? Because he is yearning for his freedom. He is longing for those days when he was a king. Okay, so he is his yearning for being free again, for the life he had led in the past. He was looking at that life with a yearning, with a longing, when he was himself a king and now he is a slave. He saw, we come to the third stanza, he saw once more his dark-eyed queen among her children stand. They clasped his neck, they kissed his cheeks, they held him by the hand. A tear burst from the sleeper's lids and fell into the sand. Okay, so once more, the third stanza is describing the slave's family. Now in his dream, he can see his family. Okay, so he saw once more his dark-eyed queen. That means he was remembering his family, his wife, his beautiful wife who had dark eyes. Among her children stand. That means he had children also. So he was thinking about his wife and children. They clasped his neck. Clasp means embraced him. They held him by the neck. Because the children loved him and they held him tightly by the neck. They kissed his cheeks. So this shows that he had a very happy family. He had his queen, beautiful queen with dark eyes. He had his children who loved him so much. They used to tightly hug him and kiss him. So he remembered his family also in his dream. In the first stanza of his dream, he remembered his native land. This shows that he was very attached to the place where he belonged to. And the second stanza tells us how he longed to be back with his family, his wife and children. So he saw his beautiful wife standing among his children, and on seeing them, on seeing him, the children must have rushed to him and they must have hugged him and kissed him, and that is what he sees in his dream. And he misses his family very much. And the scene of this beautiful family, the vision of his beautiful family in his dream makes him so emotional that a tear, even in his sleep, even in his semi-conscious state, he is crying. A tear has fallen from his eyelids. Lids here refers to the eyelids. So while he is in a semi-conscious state, totally exhausted, completely exhausted, the vision of his family in his dream makes him cry, makes him so emotional that even in his sleep, a tear drops from his eyes and falls on the sand. This is what this stanza is telling you. So the third stanza tells us about the slave's family and how he misses them. That he also, in his sleep, when he imagines, sees them in his dream also, he gets so emotional that he starts crying. Okay. Now we come to the fourth stanza. And then at furious speed he rode along the Niger's bank. His bridle reins were golden chains, and with a martial clank, at each leap he could feel his scabbard of steel, smiting his stallion's flank. So there are few words which are difficult here, but when you understand, it's not so difficult. And now in this stanza, we can see how the slave is longing, yearning for his freedom. He wants to be free. He wants to be set free. He imagines himself riding on a horse at a fast speed along the banks of the river Niger. So in this stanza, the slave is in his dream. He imagines that he is once more, he is a king of his tribe, and he's riding a horse like a king at full speed, and he's making a tour of his entire kingdom. Whatever place was under him, the king, the land which was under him, he is making, taking care of that land, and he's riding with on his horse, and he's um, supervising his land. Okay, whatever land or area must that was under him, he is passing through all that now in the following stanzas. Furious speed means fast, very fast speed. He rode. What was he riding? Along. He was riding a horse. Along the Niger's bank means along the bank of the river Niger. And this furious speed of the horse also symbolizes freedom. Because he was free, he was able to ride on his horse. Now that he is not free, he is longing to ride his horse freely, okay, without anyone, any shackles on his body. He was trying, he was longing for that freedom, and therefore he was imagining himself riding a horse through his native land. His bridle reins were golden chains. Now, what are bridle reins? You know that horses, when you have to ride a horse, you have to have a kind of strap with which you're riding it, with which you are guiding the horse also. So those are the bridle reins. But the poet is saying that his bridle reins were not made of ordinary cloth or ordinary leather. It was made of gold. It was a golden chain. Okay, so a bridle rein is something which is used tied around the horse's neck so that you can control the rein, control the horse. Okay, so his bridle rein were golden chains. They were made of gold. This shows that he was a rich king. He was not only a king, but he was a very rich king. He had a lot of money. That is why his reins were of gold. And with a martial clank. Okay, clank is the sound, is a sound. Clank is the symbolizing a sound made when he was riding the horse, and martial means warlike. Martial refers to a warlike sound. When you are going to war, normally the soldiers make a war cry while they are going to attack the enemy. Any soldier, any regiment, they have a war cry. All of them have a war cry that is called a martial cry. So that is before you're going to just attack the enemy, like Ayo Gorkhali, Jai Ma Kali, all these are war cries. Okay. So each unit in the army, Indian army I'm talking about, they have their own war cries. Before they're going to attack the enemy, it energizes them. Those war cries. So martial means a warlike. So this slave, while he was riding his horse, he was riding it at such a speed that it was making a sound as if it was like the sound was like a war cry. At each leap, he could feel his scabbard of steel. smiting his stallion's flank. At each leap means as the horse was jumping ahead. So at every leap, the slave could feel that his scabbard means a case where a sword is kept. That means he was a king, he was carrying a sword with him as well. So while the horse was moving ahead, at each leap, the slave could feel that his scabbard, the case in which his sword was kept, was smiting. Smiting means attacking or hitting against. Stallion. Stallion is a male horse. Male horse is called a stallion. Flank is a part of the side of an animal's body. Okay, the word to word meaning is given in your book, but it actually refers to the side of an animal's body. So the horse which he was riding, with every leap, he could feel that his scabbard in which he had kept his sword was hitting against the body of the horse, the side part of the horse's body. So all this is symbolic of the freedom which the slave was yearning for. Why was he seeing all these kind of things in his dream? Because he was yearning, he was missing his native land, he was missing his family, he was missing his freedom. The second stanza shows how he was missing his native land. The third shows that he was missing his family, longing for them. And the fourth stanza shows us how he was missing the most important thing in life, which is freedom. Any man who is treated like an animal would not feel nice. If you're a human being and you're treated, even animals don't feel nice if you treat them badly. So think about a human being treated just like an animal, having no freedom at all, no choice of his own, and made to work day and night. They were made to work. They had no time. Okay. So imagine that the foremost thing which we want in our life, the right to freedom, is a fundamental right. Why? Because freedom is everything for a human being. To be born free, we are born free, and freedom is our birthright. We always say that. So every human being, if you are not free, you will not be able to do anything. You can have your family, but if you don't have the freedom to go to them, what will you do? Okay, you have a house, but if you are not allowed to visit that house, what will you do? So freedom is a basic human right, which this slave had been denied. He was not given this basic right of freedom. All other freedoms are related to all other rights are related to freedom. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom of religion, freedom of um, education. All the freedom, all the other freedoms are related. All the other rights in life are related to being free. If you're not free, you will not be able to eat what you want. You will not be able to stay where you want. You will not be able to speak what you want. You will not be able to study what you want. So everything is related to freedom. So the most important thing in life, that is freedom, was denied to this slave. Okay, so we will just go through the first stanza to the fourth stanza once again with the figures of speech. Now the remaining four stanzas we'll do tomorrow. Let us see what figures of speech are there in these four stanzas that we have done just now. So beside the ungathered rice, he lay his sickle in his hand, his breast. The third line has a sort of alliteration. You can mark the third line. His breast was bare, his matted hair. So his is repeated and hair in that line. So it is a sort of alliteration there. In the mist and shadow of sleep, the last line in that stanza, mist and shadow, the sleep has been compared to mist and shadow. That means he was in his dreamland. This line means that the poet, the slave, was in his dreamland, and in those, it was not very clear. A dream is not always a very clear picture, does not give you a very clear picture. And sometimes when we get up, wake up, also we don't remember what we actually saw. So it is a misty kind of thing. You're seeing also, you're not seeing it clearly also. So in the mist and shadow of sleep is a metaphor. The sleep has been compared to mist and shadow. Okay, he saw his native land. Second stanza. So there were two figures of speech here. His breast was bare, his matted hair. This is alliteration. In the mist and shadow of sleep was a metaphor. Wide through the landscape of his dreams, the lordly Niger flowed. Beneath the palm trees on the plain, once more a king he stood. strode and heard the tinkling caravans descend the mountain road. There's nothing here. No figure of speech. He saw once more his dark-eyed queen among her children stand. They clasped his neck, they kissed his cheek, they held him by the hand. A tear burst from the sleeper's lid and fell into the sand. There is no figure of speech here also. And then at furious speed, he rode along the Niger's bank, his bridle reins, you can write. The third line in the fourth stanza, his bridle reins were golden chains. Again, it can be a metaphor because chain is symbolic of the chains or the chains which were with which he was tied also. Okay. So his bridle reins, that means the horse, the reins with which you control the horse have been compared to the golden chains. That means previously he was free and he was controlling himself. Okay, he had the control over things, but now he doesn't have control over things. So his chains now are made of metal, which are actually symbolic of slavery. And these golden chains, the reins with which he was guiding his horse, is symbolic of freedom. Okay, his freedom, how he was able to control the horse. Okay. So bridal reins for golden chains can also, bridal reins have been compared to golden chains, can be a metaphor. Okay. No other figure of speech is here. Smiting a stallion's flank. Stallion is a male horse and flank, I told you, is the side part of an animal's body. So this is all that we will do today. Tomorrow we'll be doing the rest of the poem. Okay. So thank you, everyone.